Okay, so we are reading the Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. We are on the chapter name is The Emerging Culture, and we are on page 258 of the book and 144 of the PDF.
Once we reach the critical mass, he continued, and the insights begin to come in on a global scale, the human race will first experience a period of intense introspection. We'll grasp how beautiful and spiritual the natural world really is. We'll see trees and rivers and mountains as temples of great power to be held in reverence and awe. We'll demand to end to any economic activity that threatens this treasure. And those closest to this situation will find alternative solutions to this pollution problem because someone will intuit these alternatives as they seek their own evolution.
So, what is a critical mass? A critical mass is the tipping off point, okay, where once you reach that point, then the movement can start very, very fast towards something happening. So over here, what they are saying is, and it's happening, but it's happening slower than what is being said in the book, where people are becoming more and more aware that nature needs to be protected. So everywhere, Greenpeace and other people, they're all talking about conservation, planting more trees, less fishing, less degradation of the environment. Pollution has become a huge thing now. So everyone has started to suddenly pay attention to all this.
This will be part of the first great shift that will occur, he continued, which will be a dramatic movement of individuals from one occupation to another, because when people begin to receive clear intuitions of who they really are and what they're supposed to be doing, they very often discover they're in the wrong job and they have to jump to another type work in order to continue to grow. The manuscript says that during this period, people will sometimes change careers several times during their lifetimes.
So again, the point here is that people will start to realize that they are square pegs in round holes. And because of that, they will start to shift jobs. Okay. Now, having said that, today, if you call for an interview of anyone, if you just set up for an interview, you'll find that sticking to the same job has gone out of the window now. The point is that people are in a hurry. Now, over here, they say that they will be intuitively doing it. Having said that, now people are doing it more for monetary considerations rather than actually intuiting what is the work that they should be doing. But this is also bound to come that people will start doing, like the movie Three Idiots. It clearly indicated that you need to do what you need to do or what is your propensity rather than doing something because you're being forced to do that particular job. So that realization is slowly seeping into people.
The next cultural shift will be an automation of the production of goods. To the people who are doing the automating, the technicians, this will feel like a need to make the economy run more efficiently. But as the intuitions become clearer, they will see that what automation is actually doing is freeing up everyone's time so that we can pursue other endeavors.
So this is something that we are all observing. Automation is coming into the picture in a big way. And naturally, we'll find that we have more free time than what time our forefathers had because they were totally occupied with survival in the beginning, right? Now, today, survival is not in the picture anymore. So, there is so much more time that we have to do other things. I'm not saying that we all use our time very effectively and positively and productively, but yes, all of us seem to have much more time to do many more things.
The rest of us, meanwhile, will be following our own intuitions within our chosen occupations and wishing we had even more of this free time. We will realize that the truth we have to tell and the things we have to do are too unique to fit within a usual job setting. So, we will find ways to cut our employment hours to pursue our own truth. Two or three people will hold what used to be one full time job. This trend will make it easier for those displaced by the automation to find at least part time jobs.
So now, to a certain extent, this is also happening in the sense that people want to work less. Okay. They don't want to work as hard as the people, I mean, our forefathers.
But what about money? I asked. I can't believe people will voluntarily reduce their incomes. Oh, we won't have to, Dobson said. The manuscript says our incomes will remain stable because of the people who are giving us money for the insights we provide. I almost laughed. What? He smiled and looked directly at me. The manuscript says that we discover more about the energy dynamics of the universe. We will see what really happens when we give someone something. Right now, the only spiritual idea about giving is the narrow concept of religious tithing.
So again, Shimangla, you have to take care of your mic. Okay, so now again, what is happening here? The moment we start giving energy freely, and the other person is also giving energy freely, an exchange system will automatically develop. So you'll not have to run after money. You will be provided for with what you need. This is the utopian situation that they are looking for. It has not yet manifested according to me, but yeah, we can attempt to get there.
He moved his gaze to Father Sanchez. As you know, the scriptural notion of tithing is interpreted most commonly as an injunction to give 10% of one's income to a church. The idea behind this is whatever we give will be returned many times. But the ninth insight explains that giving is really a universal principle of support, not just for churches, but for everyone. When we give, we receive in return because of the way energy interacts in the universe. Remember, when we project energy into someone, this creates a void in ourselves, which, if we are connected, fills up again. Money works exactly the same way. The ninth insight says that once we begin to give constantly, we will always have more coming in than we could possibly give away.
So again, it is the setup of the energy field. The more you give, the more you open yourself to receiving. Now, if we are giving 10% of what we earn forcefully, okay, then it is a transaction. We are giving that 10% to get back more. But if you are willingly giving that 10% or willingly helping out with others, that is what, according to me, really works. If you are doing it as a transaction, then it's a transaction. If you're giving it from the heart, then it's the what was discussed in the eighth insight is that you're filling yourself up with energy and then you're giving that out willingly. Okay. So now even money is a form of energy. So if you're willingly giving it, then you fill up with energy again. But if it's a transaction, then it leaves a question mark.
And our gifts, he went on, should go to the persons who have given us spiritual truth. When people come into our lives at just the right time to give us the answers we need, we should give them money. This is how we will begin to supplement our incomes and ease out of the occupations which limit us. As more people engage in this spiritual economy, we will begin a real shift into the culture of the next millennium. We will have moved through the stage of evolving into our right occupation and will be entering the stage of getting paid for evolving freely and offering our unique truth to others.
So again, what it's saying is that people who give you knowledge, who give you intuition, should be paid at a reasonable level. The reason here is that person who's intuitive is not doing any kind of physical labor. So they're not providing you with material things, but they are providing you with insights. And that becomes important. But if you really see the people who provide the insights today are really not paid as much. Now, having said that, there are many people who are falsifying what they are getting also. They are not getting intuition and actually giving it to you. They are just playing up, they are doing an act of giving it to you. So again, it's a little counterproductive. But at the end, what is it? Like our Raja Maharajas used to support scholars, right? So that's how the scholarly principles and all our scriptures were written, because they were being supported by the richer class of people who were working. Now, if we don't do that, then that thing will not grow. So, people who help you out, who give you information, we should willingly give them resources so that they can continue to give us information. This is what it is saying.
I looked at Sanchez. He was listening intensely and appeared radiant. Yes, he said to Dobson, I see that clearly. If everyone were participating, then we would be giving and receiving constantly. And this interaction with others, this exchange of information would become everyone's new work, our new economic orientation. We'd be paid by the people we touched. This situation would then allow the material support of life to become fully automated because we would be too busy to own those systems or to operate them. We would want material production automated and run like a utility. We'd own stock in it, perhaps, but the situation would free us up to expand what is already the information age.
So, now today, the most valuable commodity, even today, is information. So, if you have information, again, which is insight, that becomes very, very valuable. So, we are already seeing this happening, but not to the extent that it is saying in the book.
But the important thing for us right now is that we can now understand where we are going. We could not save the environment and democratize the planet and feed the poor before because for so long we could not release our fear of scarcity and our need to control so that we could give to others. We couldn't release it because we had no view of life that served as an alternative. Now we do.
So, again, so not feed the poor because of scarcity. Okay. So, if I'm scared that I will not have enough, then the hoarding principle starts operating. Now, if I'm sure that I will have enough, then I don't need to hoard anymore. So when I have, I will give it. There's a story about Japan where after the war, where people were lining up to take food packets. No one took extra. The reason was that there had to be enough for everyone. So if I take extra, that means I'm depriving someone else. That was the culture which was there. So if you see, Japan grew out of the entire World War II scenario in spite of having two atom bombs dropped on it, and they ultimately became really superior. If you see Japanese culture, it is based on this giving only. Today in Japan, if you go and ask for directions, don't be surprised that the person will take you exactly where you wanted to go. They'll drop you and then go back where they're going. So this becomes very, very important over there. Yes, Aisha, you want to say something?
Yeah, the Japanese did this just now when they had the tsunami also. They
Exactly.
ran out of water and people went into department stores and picked up one bottle rather than going and cornering the whole thing. So it's really
Exactly.
quite outstanding that they can continue to have this culture of sharing.
Exactly. So if you see Japanese culture, and that's why what we read in Ikigai also, right? They were doing their best in whatever they were doing and they were following what they were doing. So finding your Ikigai is what this principle is talking about, that knowing what you need to do and intuitively knowing and following that particular intuition to what you need to do to be happy in this life. So this is exactly with Ikigai and this book, you see the tying up. And today Japanese people, they're not very reactive, but they are satisfied in what they are doing.
He looked at Phil. But wouldn't we need a cheap source of energy? Fusion, superconductivity, artificial intelligence, Phil said. The technology to automate is probably not that far away now that we have the knowledge of why to do it. That's right, Dobson said. The most important thing is that we see the truth of this way of life. We are here on this planet not to build personal empires of control, but to evolve. Paying others for their insights will begin the transformation, and then, as more and more parts of the economy are automated, currency will disappear altogether. We won't need it. If we are correctly following out intuitive guidance, then we will take only what we need.
So now this becomes an important scenario over here. So the barter system worked something like this, that you had something I needed, I gave it to you. You had something I needed, you gave it to me. So there was no currency, there was no nothing apart from what you really needed. So people were helping out each other and supporting each other. So if you see an economy where everyone is just helping everyone else out, there is no competition, so everyone will have what they need. There is no question of hoarding. There's no question of exchange. If I have something or a capacity that will help you, I'll willingly help you. If you have a capacity to help someone else, you will help that someone else. Now, the third guy may be landing up helping me. So I will give without having anything to take from you, but I will get it from someone else. So the circular transactions, I can't say transactions, but the circular giving and taking will not need any currency. That is what they are looking at.
And we'll understand, Phil interjected, that the natural areas of the earth have to be nurtured and protected for the sources of incredible power that they are. As Phil spoke, our full attention went to him. He seemed surprised by the lift it provided. I haven't studied all of the insights, he said, looking at me. In fact, after the guard helped me escape, I might not have kept this part of the ninth at all if I hadn't run into you earlier. I remembered what you said about this manuscript being important. But even though I haven't read the other insights, I do understand the importance of keeping the automation in harmony with the energy dynamics of the earth.
So now, what is he saying here? That automation will be good, but it has to be in harmony with what doesn't disturb the energetic field of the earth. So that becomes very, very important. If we automate to the detriment of what the frequencies and the harmony or the rhythm of the earth is, it will cause different kind of problems.
My interest has been forests and the part they play in the ecosphere, he continued. I know now that it always has been, ever since I was a child. The ninth insight says that as the human race evolves spiritually, we will voluntarily decrease the population to a point sustainable by the earth. We will be committed to living within the natural energy systems of the planet. Farming will be automated except for the plants one wants to energize personally and then consume. The trees necessary for construction will be grown in special designated areas. This will free the remainder of the Earth's trees to grow and age and finally mature into powerful forests. Eventually, these forests will be the rule rather than the exception, and all human beings will live in close proximity to this kind of power. Think what an energy filled world we will live in.
So today, when we are living in the natural environment which has a high energy field, automatically our intuition will increase, our well-being will increase, everything will start to increase.
It ought to raise everyone's energy level, I said. Yes, it would, Sanchez said distractedly, as though he were thinking ahead about what the increase in energy would mean. Everyone waited. It would accelerate, he said finally, the pace of our evolution. The more readily we have energy flowing into us, the more mysteriously the universe responds by bringing people into our lives to answer our questions. He looked thoughtful again. And every time we follow an intuition and some mysterious encounter leads us forward, our personal vibration increases.
So what is important here is that we engage the flow. So what he's talking about is the flow. that when we engage the flow, whoever can give us information about the next step will appear in our lives, and the more we act on that information will take us to the next step. So it becomes very important for us to keep our awareness open to see what is coming into our lives. So it's all about being aware and then acting on it.
Onward and upward, he continued, half to himself. If history continues, then we'll continue to achieve higher and higher levels of energy and vibration, Dobson said, finishing his sentence. Yes, Sanchez said. That's it. Excuse me for a minute. He got up and walked several yards into the forest and sat down alone. What else does the ninth insight say? I asked Dobson. We don't know, he said. That's where the part we have ends. Would you like to see it? I told him I would, so he walked up to his truck and came back with a manila folder. Inside were 20 typed pages. I read the manuscript, impressed with how thoroughly Dobson and Phil had captured its basic points. When I came to the last page, I understood why they had said it was only a part of the ninth insight. It ended abruptly in the middle of a concept, having just introduced the idea that the transformation of the planet would create a totally spiritual culture and would raise human beings to higher and higher vibrations. It suggested that this rise would lead to the occurrence of something else, but it didn't say what. After an hour, Sanchez stood up and walked over to me. I had been content to sit with the plants, observing their incredible energy fields. Dobson and Phil were standing behind their jeep talking. I think we should go on to Iquitos, he said. What about those soldiers? I asked. I think we should risk it. I've had a clear thought that we can make it through if we leave right now. I agreed to go with his intuition and we walked over and told Dobson and Phil our plans. Both men supported the idea. Then Dobson said, we've also been discussing what to do. We're going directly to the Celestine ruins, I think. Maybe we can help save the rest of the ninth insight. We bade them goodbye and drove north again. What are you thinking about? I asked after a period of silence. Father Sanchez slowed the truck and looked at me. I'm thinking about Cardinal Sebastian, about what you have said, that he would stop fighting the manuscript if only he could be made to understand. As Father Sanchez made the statement, my mind wandered into a daydream of actually confronting Sebastian. He was standing in a courtly room looking down at us. At that moment, he had the power to destroy the ninth insight, and we were fighting to make him understand before it was too late. I finished the thought. I noticed Sanchez was smiling at me. What were you seeing? He asked. I was just thinking of Sebastian. What was happening? The image of confronting Sebastian was clearer. He was about to destroy the last insight. We were trying to talk him out of it. Sanchez took a deep breath. It looks like whether the rest of the ninth insight becomes known will depend on us. My stomach drew into a knot at the idea. What should we say to him? I don't know, but we must persuade him to see the positive, to understand that the manuscript as a whole doesn't negate but clarifies the truth of the church. I'm sure the rest of the ninth insight does just that. We rode in silence for an hour, seeing no other traffic of any kind. My thoughts raced through the events which had transpired since I'd come to Peru. I knew the manuscript's insights had finally merged in my mind into one consciousness. I was alert to the mysterious way my life evolved, as revealed by the first insight. I knew that the whole culture was sensing this mystery again as well, and we were in the process of constructing a new worldview, as pointed out by the second. The third and fourth had showed me that the universe was in reality a vast system of energy and that human conflict was a shortage and a manipulation for this energy. The fifth insight revealed that we could end this conflict by receiving an inpouring of this energy from a higher source. For me, this ability had almost become habit. The sixth that we could clear our old repeated dramas and find our true selves was also permanently etched in my mind. And the seventh had set in motion the evolution of these true selves through question, intuition of what to do, and answer. Staying in this magic flow was truly the secret of happiness. And the eighth, knowing how to relate in a new way to others, bringing out in them the very best, was the key to keeping the mystery operating and the answers coming. All the insights had integrated into a consciousness that felt like a heightened sense of alertness and expectation. What was left, I knew, was the ninth, which revealed where our evolution was taking us. We had discovered some of it. What about the rest?
So again, each of the insights is building on the other, right? So we are creating a spectrum of awareness at the end of it, to becoming more aware as to what is happening, where are we going, and what we need to do about it.
Father Sanchez pulled the truck to the side of the road. We are within 4 miles of Cardinal Sebastian's mission, he said. I think we should talk. Okay, I don't know what to expect, but I presume all we can do is drive right in. How large a place is this? Large. He has developed this mission for 20 years. He selected this location to serve the rural Indians whom he felt had been neglected. But now students come from all over Peru. He has administrative duties with the church organization in Lima, but this is his special project. He is totally devoted to this mission. He looked directly into my eyes. Please stay alert. There may come a time when we need to help each other. After saying this, Sanchez drove ahead. For several miles we saw nothing, then we passed two military jeeps parked at the right side of the road. The soldiers inside looked at us intensely as we drove by. Just a second, I'm just coming, 1 second.
Okay, Shimangla, you can go ahead.
He looked directly into my eyes. Please stay alert. There may come a time when we need to help each other. After saying this, Sanchez drove ahead. For several miles, we saw nothing when we passed two military jeeps parked at the right side of the road. The soldiers inside looked at us intensely as we drove by. Well, Father Sanchez said, they know we are here. A mile further, we came to the entrance to the mission. Urge iron gates protected the paved drive. Although the gates were open, a jeep and four soldiers blocked our way and signaled us to stop. One of the military men talked into a shortwave radio. Sanchez smiled as a soldier walked up. I'm Father Sanchez, here to see Cardinal Sebastian. The soldier scrutinized Sanchez, then me. He turned and walked back to the soldier with the radio. They talked without taking their eyes off us. After several minutes, the soldier came back and said we should follow them. The jeep led us up the tree lined drive for several hundred yards until we came to the mission grounds. The church was built of cut stone and was massive, capable of seating, I guessed, over 1,000 people. On both sides of the church were two other buildings which looked like classrooms. Both were 4 stories high. This place is impressive, I said. Yes, but where are the people? He asked. I noticed the paths and walkways were empty. Sebastian runs a famous school here, he said. Why are there no students? The soldiers led us to the entrance of the church and asked us politely but firmly to get out and follow them inside. As we walked up the cement steps, I could see several trucks parked behind an adjacent building. 30 or 40 soldiers stood at attention nearby. Once inside, we were led through the sanctuary and asked to enter a small room. There, we were searched thoroughly and told to wait. The soldiers left and the door was locked. Where is Sebastian's office? I asked. Further back towards the rear of the church, he said. The door suddenly opened. Flanked by several soldiers stood Sebastian. His posture was tall and erect. What are you doing here? Sebastian asked Sanchez. I want to talk with you, Sanchez said. About what? The ninth insight of the manuscript. There's nothing to discuss. It will never be found. We know you've already found it. Sebastian's eyes widened. I will not allow this insight to be disseminated, he said. It is not the truth. How do you know it's not the truth? Sanchez asked. You could be wrong. Let me read it. Sebastian's face softened as he looked at Sanchez. You used to think I would make the correct decision in a matter of this kind? I know, Sanchez said. You were my mentor, my inspiration. I patterned my mission after yours. You respected me until this manuscript was discovered, Sebastian said. Don't you see how divisive it is? I tried to let you go on your own way. I even let you alone after I knew you were teaching the insights. But I will not let this document destroy everything our church has built.
So if you see, Sebastian is operating out of fear. He wants to keep control in his hands or in the church's hand. And because he feels that the insights are going to release that control that they have over the population, he is scared of the insights.
Another soldier walked up behind Sebastian and asked to see him. Sebastian glanced at Sanchez, then walked back into the hall. We could still see but could no longer hear the conversation. The message obviously alarmed Sebastian. As he turned to walk away, he signaled for all the soldiers to follow him except for one, whom he apparently told to wait with us. The soldier walked into the room and leaned against the wall, a disturbed look on his face. He was only about 20 years old. What is wrong? Sanchez asked him. The soldier only shook his head. Is it about the manuscript, the ninth insight? The soldier's face displayed surprise. What do you know of the ninth insight? He asked timidly. We are here to save it, Sanchez said. I too want it saved, the soldier replied. Have you read it? I asked. No, he said, but I have heard the talk. It brings our religion alive. Suddenly, from outside the church came the sound of gunfire. What's going on? Sanchez asked. The soldier stood motionless. Sanchez gently touched his arm. Help us. The young soldier walked to the door and checked the hall, then said, Someone has broken into the church and stolen a copy of the ninth insight. They seem to still be here on the grounds somewhere. More gunfire broke out. We must try to help them, Sanchez told the young man. He looked horrified. We must do what's right, Sanchez stressed. This is for the whole world. The soldier nodded and said we should move to another area of the church where there would be less activity, that perhaps he could find a way to help. He led us down the hall and up two flights of stairs to a larger corridor which spanned the full width of the church. Sebastian's office is right below us, 2 stories down, the young man said. Suddenly, we could hear a group of people running down an adjacent corridor, heading our way. Sanchez and the soldier were ahead of me and ducked into a room to the right. I knew I couldn't reach that room, so I ran into the one next to it and closed the door. I was in a classroom. Desk, podium, closet. I ran to the closet, found it unlocked, and squeezed in amid boxes and several musty smelling jackets. I attempted to conceal myself as best as I could, but I knew if anyone checked in the closet, I would be discovered. I tried not to move, not even to breathe. The door to the classroom squeaked open, and I could hear several people enter and walk about the room. One seemed to be coming towards the closet, then stopped and headed in another direction. They were talking loudly in Spanish, then silence, no movement. I waited 10 minutes before I slowly cracked the closet door and looked out. The room was empty. I walked to the door. There was no indication of anyone outside. I quickly walked to the room where Sanchez and the soldier had hidden. To my surprise, I found it was not a room at all, but a hallway. I listened but could hear nothing. I leaned against the wall, feeling anxiety in the pit of my stomach. I quietly called out Sanchez's name. No response. I was alone. I could feel a slight dizziness from the anxiety. I took a deep breath and tried to talk to myself. I had to keep my wits about me and increase my energy. For several minutes, I struggled until the colors and shapes in the hallway had more presence. I tried to project love. Finally, I felt better and thought of Sebastian again. If he was in his office, Sanchez would go there.
So now again, what is he using? Instead of losing it, he takes that time to center himself, to get back that equanimity and equilibrium within himself, so that he comes on the right side of the grid and then he takes a decision. So you'll find that if you center yourself, whenever you're getting into a stressed out situation, if you center, shift from the left to the right, you will find there will be more clarity in your mind to take the correct decision.
Ahead, the hallway ended at another stairway, so I walked 2 flights down to the first level. Through the window of the stairway door, I looked down the corridor. No one was in view. I opened the door and walked ahead, not sure where I wanted to go. Then I heard Sanchez's voice coming from a room in front of me. The door was cracked. Sebastian's voice boomed back at him. As I approached the door, a soldier inside opened it suddenly and pointed a rifle at my heart, forcing me inside against the wall. Sanchez acknowledged me with a glance and put his hand on his solar plexus. Sebastian shook his head in disgust. The young soldier who had helped us was now nowhere to be seen. I knew that Sanchez's gesture to his stomach meant something. All I could think of was that he needed energy. As he spoke, I focused on his face, trying to see his higher self. His energy field widened. You can't stop the truth, Sanchez said. People have a right to know. Sebastian looked condescendingly at Sanchez. These insights violate the scriptures. They could not be true. But do they really violate the scriptures? Or do they just show us what the scriptures mean? We know what they mean, Sebastian said. We've known for centuries. Have you forgotten your training, your years of study? No, I haven't, Sanchez said. But I also know that the insights expand our spirituality. They. According to whom? Sebastian shouted. Who wrote this manuscript anyway? Some pagan Mayan who learned somewhere how to speak? Aramaic, what did these people know? They believed in magic places and mysterious energy. They were primitives. The ruins where the ninth was found is called the Celestine temples, the heavenly temples. What could this culture possibly know about heaven? Did their culture endure? He continued. No. No one knows what happened to the Mayans. They just disappeared without a trace.
Okay,
And
so
you
now
want
this is
us to believe
important.
this manuscript?
1 second. Now, this is important, right? No one knows what happened to the Mayans. They disappeared without a trace. So, what do you all think happened to them? When you start raising your vibratory frequency, then what happens is that with normal eyes, the other person will not be able to see you. So the Mayans, according to this, may have raised their frequency level to such an extent that they did not, they are not visible anymore, or they transcended to a higher plane of existence.
Did their culture endure? He continued. No, no one knows what happened to the Mayans. They just disappeared without a trace. And you want us to believe this manuscript. This document makes it sound as though humans are in control as though we are in charge of change in the world. We are not. God is. The only issue humans face is whether to accept the scriptural teachings and thereby win our own salvation.
So now this is the point. Now this is the point of contention. We are not God. Okay. So what is it? In Christianity, God is someone outside us. So they believe in duality, right? Now, if we have the power, that means we are God. Now, that is not something that can be easily understood by the Christian faith. Okay. Now, in Hinduism, we talk about non duality, but in Christianity, and in the Gita talks, he talks about the the two places where the most important religions in the world came out. One was in the Middle Eastern countries, and one was in India. So Christianity and Islam came from the Middle Eastern countries, and Hinduism, Buddhism came from India. So these religions they don't talk about non-duality, and those religions they talk about duality. So you cannot become God. So over here he says that this document makes it sound as though humans are in control, as though we are in charge of change in the world. We are not. God is. But ultimately, what are we understanding in this entire thing? That today, if I can make myself economic, operate out of equanimity and be clear with my intuition as to what I need to do, then automatically, and if everyone starts doing that, then everyone will reach towards the ultimate goal. So we have the power in our hand, actually.
But think about that, Sanchez replied. What does accepting the teachings and winning salvation really mean? What is the process through which this happens? Doesn't the manuscript show us the exact process of becoming more spiritual, connected, saved the way it actually feels? And doesn't the eighth and ninth show us what would happen if everyone were acting this way? Sebastian shook his head and walked away, then turned and looked at Sanchez piercingly. You haven't even seen the ninth insight. Yes, I have. Part of it. How? Part of it was described to me before we arrived here. I read another section a few minutes ago. What? How? Sanchez walked closer to the older priest. Cardinal Sebastian, people everywhere want this last insight revealed. It places the other insights into perspective. It shows us our destiny. What spiritual consciousness really is. We know what spirituality is, Father Sanchez. Do we? I think not. We've spent centuries talking about it, visualizing it, professing our belief in it. But we've always characterized this connection as something abstract, something we believe in intellectually. And we've always cast this connection as something an individual must do to avoid something bad happening, rather than to acquire something good and tremendous. The manuscript describes the inspiration that comes when we are truly loving others and evolving our lives forward.
So again, it, the religions were based on fear mongering, that if you don't do this, this bad thing will happen. It was not about uplifting. Okay. Now, again, the point here was of the control, that the existing class who were in control wanted to maintain control in their hand. It happens in all religions. If you see, the Brahmins did the same thing here, and the church is doing the same thing with the Christians.
Should we stop?
Yeah, we can stop. One more day we will take on this. Okay, anyone, anything? So, what I'm